Something was wrong with the ice cream long before anyone tasted it. Not in the flavor, not in the texture, but in a faint microbial signal, so small it registered as a few colonies clinging to stainless steel deep inside a production line that was supposed to be clean. That first positive shouldn't have existed at all. Ice cream plants run cold, lines are sanitized in controlled cycles, and environmental swabs are designed to catch anomalies before they spread. Yet the reading didn't trigger alarms. It was logged, cleaned, retested, and filed away. A single point on a chart, a number that drifted back toward normal. But beneath that normalcy, something had already begun. Listeria doesn't behave like a normal contaminant. It survives freezing. It creeps into scratches too fine for the eye to see. It hides inside condensation droplets as they form and fall when cold metal warms just a few degrees. In a frozen dessert facility where temperatures hover near its survival range, it can hold position for months, sometimes years. Inside Blue Bell plants, the pattern built quietly. Between 2010 and 2015, environmental positives appeared in scattered locations. A drain in one room, a filler panel in another, an unreachable seam beneath a conveyor belt. Not enough to indicate an outbreak, just enough to hint that something was moving beneath the routine. Regulators later described the positives as a pattern of persistence. But at the time, each result looked isolated, correctable, containable. And out in the market, nothing looked wrong. Families brought it home. Kids opened single-serve cups in school cafeterias. Nursing homes stocked it for residents who needed soft, comforting foods. Hospitals ordered it for patients recovering from surgery. No one questioned it because the company didn't know the risk had already slipped past the last checkpoint. Then came the first human case. Quiet, severe, and puzzling. A patient developed symptoms aligned with listeria, but the timing didn't match a typical outbreak. Frozen products don't behave like fresh deli meats or produce. Listeria in ice cream doesn't grow at cold temperatures. It simply waits. A contaminated unit can remain infectious for months, moving through the supply chain unchanged. By the time someone eats it, the contamination event may be half a year behind them. When another patient in a different state fell ill with a genetically identical strain, investigators began mapping foods consumed inside the institutions that served them. The overlap was unexpectedly narrow. In both hospitals, a dessert had been offered routinely. Small cups, single servings, delivered in bulk shipments. A product trusted because it was familiar, safe, unquestioned. Lab analysis confirmed it. Listeria monocytogenes. Same serotype, same genetic fingerprint. The strain matched environmental samples taken years earlier from Blue Bell plants, meaning the organism hadn't just arrived. It had persisted, quietly, long enough to appear, disappear, and reappear as equipment was cleaned, adjusted, or lightly modified. Inside the plant, investigators found structural challenges common in older facilities. Narrow spaces where water pooled during cleaning. Insulated panels that trapped moisture. Seams that couldn't be fully disassembled for deep sanitation. Temperature logs showed slight fluctuations, just 2 or 3 degrees, enough to produce condensation on chilled metal surfaces. And condensation is one of Listeria's most reliable vehicles. The scientific picture sharpened quickly. Post-clean testing alone couldn't control a pathogen that retreats deeper than a swab can reach. A negative result after sanitation means only that the swabbed area is clean. It says nothing about hidden reservoirs. And those reservoirs can release cells back into the environment through vibration, splashing, or temperature drift measured in minutes, not hours. Production records showed that some equipment had tested positive multiple times across different seasons. Corrective actions were taken, but root causes remained. Meanwhile, the pathogen kept finding new microenvironments: the underside of a guard, the shadow of a belt roller, the edges of a filling mechanism that was difficult to access without stopping production entirely. When the outbreak link became undeniable, recalls expanded rapidly. At first, a single line, then multiple plants, Then every product made on systems that couldn't be guaranteed free of contamination. Recalls in the frozen dessert sector are rare, partly because the cold chain delays detection. But once initiated, the scale becomes immense. Units remain frozen for months. Retailers store backup inventory. Institutional freezers hold weeks of stock. Suddenly, every location becomes part of the traceability map. The emotional weight fell hardest on institutions that trusted the brand. Patients who consumed the ice cream were often medically fragile. Listeria doesn't need a high dose to cause severe illness in vulnerable individuals. A few cells, too few to detect without enrichment, can be enough when the immune system is weakened. Families who expected a safe treat were confronted with an illness no one linked to ice cream until it was too late. Regulators examined documentation spanning years. They studied temperature drift logs, environmental test results, cleaning protocols, and the frequency of retesting after positives. They reconstructed how a pathogen could survive inside a frozen dessert plant despite acceptable water temperatures, standard sanitizer concentrations, and routine cleaning cycles. The answer wasn't negligence. It was the slow accumulation of small, overlooked variables forming a long-term survival zone. Ice cream production lines are complex. They involve emulsifiers, stabilizers, high-fat mixtures, and frozen surfaces that resist sanitizers. A pathogen capable of forming biofilms, thin layers of cells protected by their own secretions, can anchor itself in places where sanitizer contact time never meets regulatory thresholds. And once a biofilm stabilizes, eradication requires aggressive interventions that disrupt production for days. The outbreak forced a nationwide shutdown of multiple plants, sweeping sanitation, equipment redesign, and a complete overhaul of environmental monitoring programs. Industry-wide, frozen dessert companies expanded their swab maps deeper into equipment, drains, overhead structures, and transitional zones. Cold-loving pathogens became a focal point of training. And regulators reinforced a critical message: negative swabs mean nothing without long-term trend analysis. But the deepest lesson was more unsettling. A system can show isolated anomalies for years without revealing the full pattern. A plant can operate within apparent compliance while a pathogen quietly builds a foothold. A frozen product can hide contamination longer than investigators expect. And trust among consumers, institutions, and regulators can hold steady until the data finally aligns. So the question that lingers is not about what failed in the past. It's about what signs today might look too small to matter, yet point to something persistent beneath the surface. Because in this case, the danger didn't grow louder. It grew colder, quieter, and more patient, waiting for the moment when someone would finally trace the line back to where it began, in a place no one expected to find it.